Mortal Kombat is one of the most influential video game series of all time, and I don't think that's an understatement. The franchise planted its flag in 1992 and never looked back, bringing to life many phrases and fighters that would be referenced for years to come. But what is the one thing that's consistent across every Mortal Kombat game? Incredibly well-designed characters, blood and gore, but none of those are the answer I was looking for. The answer I was looking for was death.
You will die.
No matter which game or era we are talking about, it's more than likely that your favorite characters have met their end at least once. I mean, even Liu Kang couldn't escape this fate. But who has bitten the bullet the most? Today, my goal is to answer that question. I've compiled a list of the number of times different characters have ventured into the Afterrealm. I just made that up. To find out who the developers secretly, or not so secretly, hate the most. I'm looking at you, Suhao. So what I'll do is I'll give you the character, explain the number of times they've died and how it happened, and then rank them in one of these categories. Of course, I just have a few rules before we begin. First and foremost, this list covers character deaths only in the canonical endings, meaning that if, for example, Cobra took down Scorpion in his Deception ending, in his dreams, that doesn't count. Secondly, the character needs to have died at least twice throughout the series, because otherwise, I'd have to sit here and discuss how every single member of the Armageddon roster lost their life. So as far as that's concerned, I'll just say this right now, the vast majority died during Armageddon. And finally, I understand characters have been resurrected and revived. The constantly evolving timeline and complicated multiverse plot could theoretically mean no one has ever really died, but that's no fun. So I guess just suspend your disbelief with me and throw most logic out the window. I hope that all makes sense, and I hope that you all gain valuable knowledge from watching this video. I want to give a huge shout out to FrostyDog99 for the idea, and let's get to it and see how many times characters have met their maker in the Mortal Kombat series. But first, beginning with the characters who have died at least twice, we have quite a few. Smoke perished during the Battle of Armageddon and during Sindel's running riot in MK9. Right alongside Cabal and Stryker.
Running riot.
Kuai Liang was another victim of the Battle of Armageddon and of Sindel in MK9.
No.
Shao Kahn has, believe it or not, only died twice. You may remember the Deadly Alliance ending him in the intro to, well, Deadly Alliance.
In a false show of allegiance, they sprung their attack.
But that was just a decoy. He dies at the end of MK9. And has his soul stolen by Shang Tsung at the end of MK11 Aftermath.
He's about to get his soul sucked.
Now yours to me begins.
And yes, Shang Tsung's ending is technically canon. The next three characters, Draman, Moloch, and Havoc, all perished both in Armageddon and the MKX comic series. Draman is reduced to a skeleton by Quan Chi, Moloch has his head removed by Katana, and Quan Chi is responsible for crushing Havoc's head. Reiko dies during the Battle of Armageddon and in the MKX comic series when Havoc gouges out his eyes and crushes his head. Kentaro dies during the Battle of Armageddon and has his head ripped off by Sonya Blade in the MKX comics. Cyrax navigated to the big Cyberlinque factory in the sky twice. The first, of course, was during the Battle of Armageddon, and the second occurred in the MKX comic series, who initiates a self-destruct sequence. Fujin and Cobra supposedly lost their lives to Frost
Fujin, I killed you.
You would do better spitting in the wind.
I'll spit on your grave. I froze Fujin for Cetrion.
Then this fight is now personal.
What fight isn't, Raiden?
and Aaron Black, respectively.
You know the Black Dragon.
Killed one. Cobra, I think.
Another reason to gotcha.
I'm not sure if this technically counts, but Cetrion was the only character to die twice in MK11 only, and that was both in the main story and in the Aftermath story.
I have failed you, dearest Cetrion. You have done admirably. Yet there is one final service to perform. Yes, Mother. I understand. You will be exalted in the new era, Cetrion. Dearest Cetrion, you have served me admirably. Now there is one final service you must perform. Yes, Mother. I understand.
I suppose you could technically say that Kronika dies twice in MK11, having lost to Liu Kang in the primary storyline.
All too easy.
And to Shang Tsung in the Aftermath storyline.
Time and destiny are now mine to command.
The Edenian traitor Tanya expired both in Armageddon, and it's implied through dialogue that Kotal Khan quote-unquote took care of her.
What happened to Tanya?
For her treason, Kotal killed her.
You face the same punishment, Rain.
Jade will die, as Tanya did!
Return her to me, Melina.
Never! You must feel my pain!
Goro crossed over twice. The first was during the Battle of Armageddon, and the second was at some point between MKX and MK11, as seen in the MK11 crypt. But there are debates as to whether or not this is even canon. Goro is also nothing more than a skeleton in the Goro's Lair stage, and I can't leave out the references to his death in many of Shiva's MK11 pre-fight dialogues.
We have no score to settle, Queen Shiva.
Tell that to Prince Goro and King Gorbak.
Are you so eager to join them?
Find it in your heart to forgive Kotal.
He has yet to suffer for killing Goro.
Goro shed first blood, not Kotal.
Reptile, despite being a historical jobber, only perished twice in the series. The first was in his Deadly Alliance ending, where a mysterious dragon egg cracked open and Onaga's spirit possessed him. And the second was, you know, during the Battle of Armageddon. Now for Baraka, this is a tricky one. I've seen many videos and sources indicate that Kung Lao sliced him in half sometime after MK2, which would explain why he's stapled together in MK Gold, and I don't see how you could physically still be alive after being sliced in half, but this is Mortal Kombat after all. I'm gonna omit that death since there was no actual confirmation. But he did die during the Battle of Armageddon, interestingly enough when Kung Lao split him in half with his hat, and then to Devora in MKX. The Drunken Master Bo Raicho may or may not have died twice in the series. The first was obviously during the Battle of Armageddon, and then in MKX, Shinnok inflicts pain on Bo Raicho using the amulet, while vowing to end him. And although it's somewhat up in the air, I'll put him down for 2.
Yet another of your allies falls to me. When he dies, I will claim his soul.
You know not his power. His soul cannot be subjugated.
Okay, now let's recap every character that died twice in the series and put them in the proper category. We had Smoke, Cabal, Striker, Kuai Liang, Shao Kahn, Draman, Moloch, Havoc, Reiko, Kintaro, Cyrax, Fujin, Cobra, Cetrion, Chronica, Tanya, Goro, Reptile, Baraka, and Bo Raicho. Alright, now let's get to the characters who have died 3 times in this series. We begin with the Thunder God Raiden, who debuted in the first game and wouldn't perish until 2004's Mortal Kombat Deception.
Raiden began to realize that even their combined might was not enough to defeat the Dragon King. There was only one chance left. Raiden's sacrifice was in vain.
He would later return as Dark Raiden. Shao Kahn then took his life in Armageddon/MK9.
Little strawberry. The dog riddler. Jerem Maltel.
Yes. Pray to the world. As your
I tell. Rechu Uth Oi Denizai.
He must win.
And he would be erased from the timeline in MK11. Sector died in Armageddon, the MKX comic, having his head removed by Kuai Liang, and in MK11 when Kano used him as a bomb. Kano died during the Battle of Armageddon,
Destruction.
and twice in MK11, when Sonya puts a permanent hole in past Kano's head, which simultaneously affects the present Kano.
I don't feel so good.
Johnny Cage is the only character to die 3 times in the original timeline and 0 times in the NRS timeline. He perished in MK3 at the hands of Motaro, which would later be revealed in MK9. Shang Tsung killed him in Deadly Alliance, and then he would later become a victim of the Battle of Armageddon. Sonya Blade is also part of the 3 Club, having died in Deadly Alliance, during the Battle of Armageddon, and famously in MK11.
Your duty. Mine's to finish the mission.
Mom, no, we can save you!
I love you, Cass. Give your dad a kiss for me.
Mom, no, don't!
The Red Dragon member Mavado died in deception at the hands of Cabal during the Battle of Armageddon, and finally to Cassie Cage in the MKX comic series, who destroys him with his own hook swords. Melina has ascended to the nasty flesh pits in the sky 3 times in the series. Her first death occurred sometime between MK2 and MK3 at the hands of Katana. This was confirmed in her UMK3 bio. She also became one of the many victims of the Battle of Armageddon. And finally, everyone's favorite character in the history of the series, Devora, devoured Melina's flesh with the nastiest kiss ever in Mortal Kombat.
Gotcha!
Special Forces member Jax also has 3 deaths to his credit. He died in Deadly Alliance during a battle with the Deadly Alliance. Then during the Battle of Armageddon. And finally during Sindel's MK9 Kilimanjaro.
Kilimanjaro.
We lost Quan Chi 3 times in the series, with the first being in MK Mythologies to Bihan.
Why did you help me?
You may think the intro of Deception is included in this, but it was later revealed that he escaped before Raiden's blast could affect him. He would become a victim of the Battle of Armageddon. And Scorpion, sorry,
Hanzo Hasashi!
did the deed in MKX as an act of vengeance.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
The Edenian assassin Jade expired during the Battle of Armageddon, then to Sindel in MK9, who I guess removes her heart, but that's a little bit unclear. And finally to Sindel once again in MK11 Aftermath, but this was Jade's Revenant version. The Centaur/Minotaur Mataro became a victim of Shiva's wrath in MK3, then perished during the Battle of Armageddon, and then Raiden destroyed him in MK9.
Johnny Cage fighting a giant monster? What is this, Time Smashers?
What is this?
Raiden has killed Motaro.
That's him, on the throne.
You're a right genius, you are.
Speaking of Shiva, she was not long for this world in MK3 thanks to Shao Kahn, who stabs her with a sword instead of using his hammer or any of his other iconic attacks. Again during the Battle of Armageddon. And finally to Sindel in MK11 Aftermath, presumably.
Kitana murdered your Shokan brethren. Shiva challenged her and suffered this punishment. Swear your allegiance, and I shall see her avenged.
Now let's recap the characters that died 3 times. We had Raiden, Sector, Kano, Johnny Cage, Sonya Blade, Mavado, Melina, Jax, Quan Chi, Jade, Mataro, and finally, Shiva. Moving on to characters who have died 4 times in the series, and there are surprisingly some heavy hitters on this list that you may or may not expect. Leading off with the series' definitive hero and reigning Mortal Kombat champion, Liu Kang. Posing as Kung Lao, Shang Tsung famously snuck up on Liu Kang in the intro of Deadly Alliance, breaking his neck and capturing his soul.
Liu Kang is dead.
The zombie version of Liu Kang also ventured to the afterlife during the Battle of Armageddon. Raiden then kills him in MK9 toward the end.
By the gods, no! No. This was not meant to happen.
What did you do?
Liu Kang, forgive me.
You have killed us all.
I don't think so.
And Shang Tsung defeats and snatches his soul at the end of MK11 Aftermath.
Breathe deeply in your final moments, Chosen One. For now, your existence ends in shame.
Next we have Nightwolf, who died during the Battle of Armageddon, sacrifices himself to defeat Sindel in MK9,
Victory is mine, Shaman.
Not if I take it from you.
By the Elder Gods.
and finally, his Revenant and non-Revenant versions presumably both die in MK11 Aftermath. Both of these are credited to Shang Tsung.
Shang Tsung, stop! We can restore him!
He wanted me. If I die, we fail.
Sorcerer, I'll...
No, Nightwolf. Shang Tsung must live.
I suppose you can argue he's not dead here, but he looks dead to me, and we don't see him for the rest of the storyline. Princess Katana is also in the 4 Club, believe it or not. She died first to Quan Chi in Deadly Alliance, then during the Battle of Armageddon, then to her own mother Sindel in MK9,
I am no longer your mother.
Mother, this is not your way. Shao Kahn has corrupted you.
Shao Kahn has resurrected me. You have betrayed him, embraced a pathetic cause.
Remember Edenia, Mother. Remember your rule before Shao Kahn's invasion.
Quiet, child. It is time for you to join your friends.
Monster!
Still alive? No matter.
And Sindel would do the same once again in MK11, this time to Revenant Katana. From one of the most beloved characters across the Mortal Kombat universe, we move to one of the most hated, even by the developers. His name? Suhao. This alleged Kano ripoff infamously died to Jax in Jax's Deadly Alliance ending, having his cybernetic heart ripped from his chest. He somehow returned and died during the Battle of Armageddon, then to Scorpion in the MKX comic series, and finally, Aaron Black presumably got a hold of him at some point, removed his head, and kept it in a sack that he walked around with. Although I suppose Scorpion could have given Aaron Black his head at some point. But hey, why not include him on this illustrious list of characters with 4 deaths? The sorcerer Shang Tsung has died 4 times in the series. First, during the epic blast in the intro of Mortal Kombat Deception.
Chance left.
Then during the Battle of Armageddon.
At last, it has come to this final battle.
Your soul is mine!
Then in MK9 when Shao Kahn steals his soul to make Sindel more powerful.
Emperor, the Empress requires something of you.
See there.
And then in the good ending of MK11 Aftermath, where Liu Kang defeats him. Perhaps the most surprising character with 4 deaths is none other than the Dragon King, Onaga. He was canonically one of the first characters to ever die in the Mortal Kombat series, after Shao Kahn poisoned and eliminated him. After his resurrection in Deception, Shujinko ends him once again to conclude that game. Shao Kahn then presumably kills him during the Battle of Armageddon, despite Onaga flying away with him. This one I've never understood. And finally, Shao Kahn's MK9 bio reveals that he quote-unquote overthrew Onaga, which indicates death in my opinion. Let's recap the fighters with 4 expirations to their credit. There's Liu Kang, Nightwolf, Katana, Suhao, Shang Tsung, and Onaga. If you enjoyed this type of content, please like the video and subscribe to my channel for more Mortal Kombat content. And that's content with a K, of course. Also, let me know if any of the character death counts have surprised you so far. Now let's get to the characters that have died a whopping 5 times. Up next is Bihan, and this is a tricky one. Scorpion takes his life in an act of revenge sometime between the first Mortal Kombat tournament in the first game and MK2. He dies again during the Battle of Armageddon.
Fear me!
He returned again as Sub-Zero in the reboot, but Scorpion exacted his revenge once again for the slaughter of his clan and his family.
It is not me.
Ouch.
Bi-Han returned as Noob Saibot in the same game, only to be yeeted into the Soul NATO by Nightwolf. And I'm recording this video before the MK1 Chaos Reigns DLC drops. Based on what we've seen, it looks like Bi-Han will die again and become Noob Saibot, so I'm gonna throw it on this list, but I suppose this is still up in the air.
You sound like Bi-Han.
I am he, though not as you remember.
What did Havoc do to you?
He perfected me. I have no flaws.
From Bi-Han, we move to the Shaolin monk Kung Lao, who has also surprisingly perished 5 times in the series. The first time occurred in Deadly Alliance, when he and several other Earthrealm warriors became victims of the Deadly Alliance. After being revived by Ermac and Liu Kang, Shinnok took his life during the Battle of Armageddon. Despite returning in the 2011 reboot, Kung Lao just couldn't catch a break. Never mind. As a result of his death at the hands of Shao Kahn, he became a Revenant. He survived Mortal Kombat X before returning again in Mortal Kombat 11, both as a Revenant and a non-Revenant. Interestingly enough, you could argue that both versions died in the Aftermath storyline. Shao Kahn yeets the past Kung Lao into the Sea of Blood, which will presumably result in his expiration. The Revenant version would later lose his life to Shang Tsung, who snaps his neck. And the final character with 5 deaths in the Mortal Kombat series is none other than Hanzo Hasashi, otherwise known as Scorpion. Bi-Han is the first to take his life, which can be seen and performed in Mortal Kombat Mythology's Sub-Zero. Much later in Mortal Kombat Armageddon, Kuai Liang finishes him with his Kori Blade. Following the Mortal Kombat 9 timeline reboot, Quan Chi was once again responsible for the elimination of his Shirai Ryu clan, his family, and Hanzo Hasashi himself. Hanzo would later return and eliminate his inner Scorpion as seen in the Mortal Kombat X comic series. That may be arguable, but I'm counting it. I mean, this series is insane after all. And finally, in perhaps the most controversial death in Mortal Kombat history, D'Vorah was responsible for killing Scorpion in Mortal Kombat 11 by using poison of all things. I know, it's ridiculous.
Poison.
Monica knew your past sins would distract you. Now this one.
You have my word. The new Shirai Ryu are worthy. It's heart, not blood, that makes them warriors.
Before we get to the only character with 6 canonical expirations, let's recap those who died 5 times. There's Bi-Han, Kung Lao, and Scorpion. We've gone through characters with 2, 3, 4, and 5 expirations thus far in the Mortal Kombat series. But who takes the top spot? Who is the one warrior to battle back from multiple departures only to consistently return, whether it be on the main roster or via DLC? Who is the only confirmed death in MK1? Well, that is none other than Sindel. Mortal Kombat Scream Queen has perished 6 times in the official canon. The first time was via a method I cannot outright say here, but you probably know what I'm referring to, when Shao Kahn invaded Edenia and forced her into a marriage. Then during the Battle of Armageddon, you could see a sword plunged into her. She perished again before MK9's story even began, considering it's a timeline reset. And it's revealed that Quan Chi was responsible this time around.
Your destiny is to serve the Netherrealm.
I would never submit to Quan Chi.
That is why he murdered you. Tell me something only Sindel would know.
Quan Chi murdered me right under your nose.
You lie, imposter!
Her ensuing expiration occurred during MK9 at the hands of Nightwolf following her Killionaire.
Killionaire.
Where the shaman sacrifices himself to eliminate her.
Victory is mine, shaman.
Not if I take it from you. By the Elder Gods.
She then had her soul stolen by Shang Tsung alongside her loving husband Shao Kahn in the MK11 Aftermath storyline. And finally, and most recently, to Dark Sindel, an alternate version of herself in MK1.
He is to be admired until our last breaths are taken. As long as blood flows through our veins, we are not beaten. Noble sentiments, which in the end matter little. None of you will leave here alive.
Mother, you can't go. Not yet.
It's my time, dear. At least, we had a few hours more.
I will cherish them.
Mother.
You are now Empress. Rule well.
I will, Mother. Father and Katana will help me.
Of course.
So I suppose in addition to calling her the Scream Queen of Edenia, she is also the Queen of Mortal Kombat Death. Let's get a big round of applause and screams for Sindel.
Too bad you will die.
And there you have it, a somewhat uncertain list of deaths in a series that has seen as much, if not more, timeline shuffling than the MCU. If there's one thing I learned on this journey, it's that some deaths are completely unclear, or the developers later retcon them anyway. While it's confusing, it's definitely part of the charm of this series at this point. The reality is that characters like Scorpion, Johnny Cage, Sub-Zero, and some others are too ingrained in the lore to be left out. So the devs are just like, screw it. They are back from the dead. I also found it shocking how few characters died in the first 4 games before the body count started rising from the 3D era and on, before cooling off in the most recent game. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I butchered some of these and violated whatever rules are bestowed upon this universe, and if that is the case, I'm sure you will all kindly let me know in the comments. Please don't roast me. One that stood out to me was Kano in MK11. The perfect example of what exactly qualifies as an expiration. Sonya puts a hole in past Kano's good eye, which simultaneously eliminates present Kano. Does that count as 1 or 2 deaths in your opinion? Let me know in the comments because this series never ceases to amaze me. Also, I'll be sure to pin a comment with any corrections so I don't get too obliterated in the comments. As always, until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back with another video soon.
Perfection.